Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another quick game of interplanetary ice bike going on here, back to Mars, back to Gale Crater, and today we have 3 birds for you, or I have 3 birds for you, I should say, for all you space detectives to have a look at. Now, a couple of these may be actual birds, and 1 or 2 of them may actually be carvings of birds. This is what we're here to find out. That's what this channel does. It's all about comparative analysis, comparing images to find out what actually happened on Mars, when it happened, and why it happened. Okay, so without further ado, I'll get the folders up straight away, and we'll start with this one. Now, I posted this on my Facebook group, Mars Magazine, the other day. This isn't one of the best examples, but I'll show you it anyway. Here we are. Not very clear. We've got the raw image here and the enhanced clip here. This is quite a long way off from the rover. It's not very large. It's probably only about 3 or 4 inches across from here to here. And it's got a very kind of almost pointed head, a long curved pointed beak. You can see the eyes, the head sticks up like that. Unfortunately, there's a rock by the side of it, which is obscuring the side of the thing. So we're losing a bit of the shape of it here, but there's enough of it there to determine that that's a bird. It's not the best example. I've got a really good one coming up in a minute, which I'll show you. Let me just give you a bit of context of what that looks like on the ground. I'll show you it here. Here's a larger clip of the area, and you can see it there. Now, this is exposed right out in the open, really close to where the rover actually landed in Gale Crater, just sitting there. But of course, NASA didn't spot it, or at least the rover spotted it. But of course, the rover's a robot, and it isn't programmed to recognize animals. It's programmed to avoid obstacles. So any large rocks or rubble or whatever in its way, it's programmed to either drive round or drive over in a certain way. Usually to drive round. It usually avoids anything that might damage it. This is the one I found most recently, just yesterday, I think, or the day before. Let me show you the clip first, the finished item. There we are. Go full screen. Now, this is upside down, and it's broken. Now, this looks to me like part of a statue that's broken, but it might not be. There's not really enough detail to tell either way. But look at the eye and the beak. This has got a short beak, a very clear eye. Even in the raw image, you can see it staring right at you. Look at that beady eye there. Unbelievable. That jumped out at me straight away when I was looking at this gigapan. This is from Sol 438, so this is much later. But this is also out in the open, but there's loads and loads of things around it, and fragments, which may be fragments of this thing, if it was a statue, which it may have been. There we are. I mean, what can I say? All I did is I flipped it round, so it made a bit more visual sense that way round. But even upside down, you can tell what it is. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Now, what type of bird is it? Well, I don't know. There's not really enough of it to say what it is, really. Now, a bird expert like my mother, if I was to show her this, she'd be able to tell you what family of birds this came from. If it was an earth bird, of course, because she knows all the different species of bird, and is one of the world's leading experts on parrots. And I often show, if I find birds on Mars, I often show them to her to get her confirmation. And she has confirmed quite a few of them, actually. And usually says, well, the beak looks like this type of species or that type of species, because you can tell by the beak shape normally what the bird may have fed on. And this doesn't look like anything dramatic like the next one I'm going to show you. And then there it is. It's just sitting there above this kind of ridge here on a sort of slight hump in the ground. Not great detail in there, but there we are. This is still, like the other one I showed you, this is probably only a few inches across, maybe 4 from here to here. About similar size, but very different in morphology. The beak is way shorter. and it's totally different, a totally different species from the last one that I showed you. This is the best one because not only is it bigger, but I think it's a bit closer to the actual camera on the Rover. And this may look big, but it's not that big. This is probably only about 5 inches. So it's probably only an inch or maybe 2 bigger than those I just showed you. But because it's closer, we've got more detail, and you can actually see the beak in a lot more detail here. Almost like there's teeth on it. It's got sort of like a serrated edge almost there, if you look carefully. Just there and there. And you can see an eye, you can see the beak, you can see the head, and what looks like feathery textures to it as well, unlike the other two. Now, of course, when you have low quality images, like a lot of these are, you're not necessarily going to see a lot of feather detail. Now, I will put a load of clips of some of the other birds that I found in a minute at the end of the video, and 1 or 2 images of birds that I've painted. I used to paint not only portraits and make sculptures and stuff like that, but I did go through a phase of painting birds of prey, which I was right into, and I have done commissions for people of birds of prey, like eagles and hawks and owls and that kind of thing. So I will put some clips of some of my artwork in with some of these images just to show you how similar they are, and to show you also that I am familiar with these, especially hawk type birds, known as raptors. So there we are. This is the best one, and one of the best I've ever found. Is this another bird here? Could be. That looks like a beak. I've just spotted that. I'll do a clip of that and enhance it in a minute for you. So often you find, even right out in the open like this, you often find skulls and things just lying around, just like you would in Africa. If you went to sort of some of the desert areas like Sahara in Africa, you'd find very similar things lying around. Loads of like dried out and fossilized remains of creatures just lying around in the dirt, you know. And you wouldn't necessarily find the bodies, because the bones from the body would be easily dragged off and eaten, whereas there's very little to eat on the head of an animal. Now that could be from a turtle, not necessarily a bird, so it could be a reptile. Those reptiles have beaks as well, some of them. So I'll do a clip of that as well, and you can have a look at that other one. Actually, I'll quickly show you that one there as we're here. We may as well look at it right now. Now, it doesn't look very clear, but look at it. Just let your eyes adjust. You have a nose here, like a snout, mouth at the bottom there, and 2 eyes, and rather strange cone-shaped head. Now, I don't know what this is, whether this is some kind of meerkat or ape or whatever. There are lots of very strange creatures, or were lots of very strange creatures on Mars, that don't necessarily correspond to ones we have on Earth. And you can see the teeth. Not very clearly, but there's teeth there. There's about 4 or so teeth there in a row. You can see the upper lip, you can see the nose, snout area, an eye there and an eye there. You've got some sort of hair or something coming down here. You've got almost like an ear sort of thing there, but it's not right there. And you've got something leaning up against it, which is probably just a rock, but may actually be part of it. So that was weird. Let me show you that. That's probably a little bit clearer. Where I've really brightened it up there. I selected it and brightened the hell out of it. So that was weird. So I don't know what that is. Maybe some of you out there might be able to say what you think it might be. Of course, a lot of this is guesswork, but in my case, I have found a lot of creatures on Mars. In fact, I found more than anyone else on Earth, and it's beyond speculation now. When you have specimens that are this clear, like this bird, then it's no longer speculation. The speculation now moves on to what type of species they are, not whether they are just rocks or birds. Now, a lot of people use the word pareidolia, which really annoys me now, but it is fair. I mean, there's a lot of channels out there who are showing very poor quality images, and they're not doing very good work with the images, and they're just actually making them worse and then claiming they're there are all sorts of things, you know, and basically a lot of them aren't. Now, I am very careful to filter out such things, and I only show things that I think are clear enough and good quality enough to show in an HD video. Now, that's difficult to do when you're dealing with low quality, low res images like these are. So you've got to treat the images with more respect and actually really think about what you're showing. And there's a lot of channels out there who are showing garbage. Now, there are a few good channels. I'm mates with some of the Mars channels out there, of course. Some of the UFAD guys are doing good work, and a lot of them contribute to my channel and also some of my pages, and I also contribute to theirs. So that's all good. And a lot of them are finding some really cool stuff. But of course, when you're looking at such things, you often find things that are ambiguous. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with showing images and then asking people to decide whether it's just a rock or a creature or a skull or a statue or whatever. That's all part of the process. And when you're a fossil hunter, you're going to have to look at a hell of a lot of rocks to find the good stuff. But sometimes, like me, you get lucky. I know what's already there because I found so many different species, everything from birds to reptiles to mammals, you know, you name it. I found all different species so far on Mars. Cats, dogs, you know, everything. Even a horse statue, I ask you, you know. So there were some sort of primitive horses on Mars as well. So it does look like the Gale Crater was an oasis, like I said many years ago, back in some of my very first videos. And now NASA have actually come out and said that there was an oasis here, and there were probably many. But this is one of the best ones I found. This does look like a hawk. It's got the curved beak. It's got a point to it there. That's designed. That's a meat-eating, carnivorous bird with a beak designed to eat other animals. Here we are. Here's a couple of things that were found by me also. Let me show you this one here. This is neither a hawk or a crow type bird. You can see an eye here. You can see the beak curving round. This is more like a parrot. Okay. Is it pareidolia? Not pareidolia, pareidolia. I mean, I think someone came up with the term pareidolia. One of my commenters or subscribers came up with it when there were loads of people accusing me of pareidolia. And he came up with the word pareidolia, and I thought that was really good because basically it's a word that gets repeated parrot fashion by skeptics who think they can just overrule you by using the word pareidolia. Now, it might work on other channels where they show basically piles of rocks or indefined objects that are hard to recognise. That may be true, and I may have shown one or two things in the past which may just turn out to be rocks that are shaped that way. But when you have hundreds of things like I found all together, when you put them all together as a body of evidence, it is proof. Do I ever call it proof? No, I don't. A lot of people use the word proof and bandy it around way too easily out there. They show undefined, blurry things on Mars that are easily dismissed by skeptics. And then the skeptics only ever talk about those easily dismissed finds when they talk about pareidolia. They never pick the clear images of creatures and the carvings that I've found. There's that bird again, much brighter here. It actually looks better smaller. The problem is when you zoom in too far, which a lot of people do, these things break up and get much worse and you can't really focus on them. There's also this weird thing here, I don't know what that is. Some kind of weird carving or something. Very odd indeed. So I do have lots of examples of birds. There was this one which was also recent. This one here. With a very long curved, slightly curved beak. Unlike the others I've shown you. There's the eye. But this is in very poor shape, unfortunately. And it may actually just be an optical illusion or optical trick or a case of pareidolia. But it may not be. But that one, because of the erosion and pitching on it, is hard to say. And it's a funny angle as well. if we could see another eye, if we could see it from the front, then that would be more conclusive. So I'm a bit 50-50 with that one. There's also this thing, which is the bird UFO. Now this probably isn't a bird. This I think is an insect, which is very close to the rover, and flew very close to one of the nav cams, I think, no, has cams, sorry, and fleetingly flew past the rover in a matter of a second, less than a second. So it was moving very quickly. This I think is an insect because it has 3 parts to it, like an insect would: head, thorax, and abdomen, with what looks like a sting on it there, just there. So this is probably some kind of insect or something, and it's probably only about 1 centimetre across. Okay, it's very small. So that is probably an insect. But there are other examples of birds I've shown on my channel, and there's a playlist which I could show you. It's called Mars Birds, and I'll put a link to that in at the end. So what I'll do, I'll put all the clips of birds I found so far in a minute for you to check out, because there are loads of them. There's about 15 I think now. Some are clear, like this one. This is the best one, probably by far. It's clearly a hawk. But some of them are much further away. Some of them are very large, but much further away, and some are really small. So the image quality does vary quite a lot. So bear that in mind. But over the years, since 2012, I have found quite a few, about 15 or 16 now. And other people have found them as well. And you can see sometimes what look like birds flying around in Gale Crater, but you can't get close enough to them to actually determine whether they are or not. But there are images that I've found where they are up in the sky looking up, where if you look up towards the edge of Gale Crater, you see like these 5 or 6 dots circling in the sky, like vultures or hawks or something. They're so tiny, it's impossible to actually verify that. But perhaps there are birds still living there. Perhaps there's water still in Gale Crater, and this is what NASA may be hiding from us. We don't know. We know they're not the most honest of people. The people that work for them generally are just technicians and scientists and stuff who just get on with the job. But when you have an organisation controlled by the military like they are, they're not allowed to say it. They're not allowed to tell us. They are gagged. So pareidolia. Is this pareidolia? No, it's probably a parrot. This one isn't, but that other one was. So there we are. I'm going to call it a day now. So clips coming up in a second. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will put links to these images below as well. And I'm just going to put a selection of the other birds, or possible birds, that have been found in this area over the last 6 or 7 years. Okay, because it's 7 years now since the rover's been there. So there we are, and I started looking at the images straight away and started finding bird remains and lizards and everything else immediately. So thanks for watching, everybody. Clips coming up now.